Hi, good evening. Prem, I think you need to unmute yourself. Couldn't hear.
Yeah. Uh, Hi, everybody. We have Sarabjeet Sachar on the session today. We are on the 168th episode of LinkedIn Live today, and we are talking on the topic of leadership in the virtual world and are ready for a challenge, for which we have Mr. Sarabjeet Sachar, founder and CEO of Aspiration, a 22-year-old firm helping people on career development and leadership. We'll go ahead and have the topic discussed. Welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you so much, Prem.
Mute
Thank you
and
so much, Vijay.
yeah, sir. You wanted to look at the way that you have been doing the career development and leadership. What has been leading the empathy change in the virtual world, and what strategies do you have or found effectively in keeping the team connected emotionally while physically apart, sir? Because of the COVID piece that we see is we have people not physically present and it is all virtual. So how do you take that pointer and help us in guiding on that, sir?
Sure, Prem. Thank you for a very, very important question. And starting with empathy is important because, frankly, empathy, without empathy, anyway, leadership cannot exist. Um, and more so, it becomes challenging in a virtual world. Prem, I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes.
So, in a virtual world, empathy becomes so important, and leadership is all about managing humans. Now, if we are talking of managing humans, that means one human to another. Without empathy, we will not be able to move ahead at all. And what happens in a virtual world that, unlike in office, you are when does empathy happen? It happens primarily, or your development of trust happens when you are in between the meetings. Whereas what happens if you don't take care in a virtual world, the only space that you meet is the meeting, and then it's the next meeting. But actually, what happens between the meetings is so important, and that's where empathy is developed. In an office environment, you keep your hand on the shoulder of a colleague, you see the body language, you try and understand what's happening, and just ask, "How are you?" Or if you find that the body language is not really conducive or up to the mark, you say, "Hey, everything is okay." Now, that part, that piece, we miss out in a virtual world because you are only limited to one meeting after another meeting. That's it. In between the meeting. So, in a virtual world, one has to really integrate this part in your work culture to ensure that you don't lose out on what perhaps is the advantage of a virtual functioning versus a office functioning. Both have their own advantages. There is no doubt. But at the same time, whatever we have learned from being in an office environment to a virtual environment, if we can build it into our work culture, you can still maintain empathy. I'll give you a recent example. Recently, one of our coaching clients, senior, on a Saturday needed something very, very urgently,
Hmm.
and I wanted my team member to actually send something, a document that was required. I called the team member. I called her two, three times. She didn't respond. Very unlike of her because she's a dedicated worker.
Hmm.
I also sent her a message, no response. I said, okay, fine, because the client is important. Some other team member stepped in, and the issue was taken care of. I just trusted this team worker's dedication. I didn't do anything. Monday, she
Hmm.
called me saying, "Sir, sorry, somebody in the family was in the ICU." Now, in an office environment, these things you can feel, you can
Yeah.
see. But here you are dependent only on technology, only on a video meeting or on a phone call. So I said, nothing doing, no talk of work, nothing. Just take care of yourself whenever you need. We are there for you. And that's it. Now, if as leaders, we do not integrate that empathetic attitude in an environment which is virtual, we will not be in a position to function productivity in a virtual world. That is something which will happen. So, what we do is we follow three things. One, being a small team, say we are 17, 18 people overall, I know the background of every individual. That's important. Where does the person come from? We have teams across. We have teams in Orissa, we have teams in Kashmir, we have teams in Agra, we have teams in UP, wherever. And Bombay also, of course, Mumbai, where we have a maximum people placed. But if you know the personal background of the person, what is the background, family background, what stage of life they are in? Somebody is a mother of a young child, somebody's got an ailing parent, somebody is the only earning member of the house, somebody is staying only in a one room kitchen. All these sensitive things you have to integrate into your understanding as a leader to be empathetic. Very important, because if you don't know the individual personally, you will just be focused on work results, but that won't work. That won't work. Second is listening. Most of the time, listening is anyway a very important trait for any good leader, whether it's office environment or whether it's a virtual. But in a virtual environment, it becomes all the more important, because you are again only in between meetings and you are dependent on technology, and the distance is so much, and the person is not really operating out of an office environment. The person could be operating out of home or could be from a remote workplace, but still it's not the office environment where you are seeing it physically. So listening, most people miss out on that, thinking that listening is something where I hear what you're saying or I even listen to you. But listening is much more than that. It is, where you make the other person feel heard. If you make the other person feel heard, then only you are a good listener. If the person doesn't feel that you are listening, I have a rule. What I do, this is a self discipline for the last 40 years of my experience. I don't give myself access to a mobile if I'm in a meeting. Simple. I don't even look at my mobile. I don't even put it out upside down, because again there'll be a vibration. I just put it in my drawer. If I'm in a meeting, that's it. Mobile I'm not accessing, because if I just keep the mobile with me and say, okay, now tell me, I'm giving you half the attention. Because there'll be a message or there'll be a vibration, I'll again get distracted. If I am talking to you in a meeting and there is an objective that is set, I'm off mobiles. So listening is the second. And third is, of course, very important, regular check-ins. I do this regular check-ins one-to-one with the team members. The team leaders also do it with their teams, but we do check-in one-to-one. And one-to-one checking in a smaller team is possible. If it's a larger team, the team members are doing it with their individual team members. But at a particular frequency, you got to do the one-to-one meeting so that you can maintain that empathy. These are the three things that we have done. It's worked very well. Yes, Prem.
Vijay, would you like to go? Yeah, give me a second. Yes, Vijay. Vijay, we are not able to hear you. Yeah, go ahead, Vijay. I think
Still
we
not
had
audible.
some audio issues. Okay, I'll just wanted to check with sir, with tools coming in so much, like you have all the tools that are like digital tools that ensure people don't lose the human touch. Can we share an example where technology enhanced but also put a challenge, posed a challenge to the team positions?
Very important and a valid point in a virtual environment. And what happens is that because of the changes in technology, we are adapting to it, we are all learning, but at the same time, the virtual environment poses a challenge where the people are operating out of their either their residences or remote work,
Hmm.
and they are in a different kind of a mindset. Now, what happens if you don't use technology in the right way? It gets difficult to manage, because all the more important in a virtual setup where, like we had Google Docs, which makes life easier for everybody. And on the Google Docs, all reports, every status of every coaching client, etc., is available there. You can refer to it at one place. All those advantages are there. Video calls, yes, they are advantages. But there is a danger here that sometimes, because of technology use in a virtual environment, you tend to just kind of, if I may say, hide behind technology because of the comfort, or
Hmm.
rather the discomfort of reaching out to a person who's on a different environment. See, in an
Okay.
office, you are straight in front of the person. Here, you have to take the extra effort, either a Google Meet or a Microsoft Teams or email or a phone or something like that. Now, if you have your own priorities, because let's accept it, everybody will not have the luxury of having a room like an office where you are just kind of, concentrating only on your work. Everybody is operating out of a home where you may have different elements which may be attracting your attention, your other personal priorities, while all things are made very clear that when you take up a work in a remote or a work from home environment, your focus has to be on work. But at the same time, as I said, we as leaders have to adapt our attitude, be more empathetic and understanding that these things will happen. So when we use technology like a Google Docs, we started using, I realized that the Google Doc became a comfort zone for many of the team leaders or team members. And generally, people wouldn't pick up the phone or come on to a video meeting. So why? Because of the pressure and the mix of so many things that are attracting your attention. You started hiding behind, or even leaders can start hiding behind the machine because of the comfort that, okay, fine, let me just do that. But that danger will mean that somewhere you will lose that human touch without talking, without understanding, without the body language, without listening to a human. You cannot afford to just use technology and hide behind it. So while we use Google Docs, while we use video, so we are also learning. It's not that what we are doing is perfect. We are also improving, because that's my firm belief. Every time we learn something, we ensure that we do something new and then learn. And so Google Docs, video meetings, etc., are fine. But one thing I realized, that we have started using phone. I love the phone because phone is, in a virtual environment, much easier to operate, to reach out. And in a phone, you can get the sense of the other individual's emotions, other individual's state of mind, other individual's attention. In a Google Meet or in a video meet, sometimes somebody's on mute, somebody's not got the camera on, sometimes network is not working. It somehow starts becoming a pain point where you say, nahi yaar, I will not do the meeting, let me send a mail and do it. And that's when you start, losing. So we started using the phone often, and the phone is really helping you, because if I'm on the phone and I'm talking to somebody, and if I find that on the phone the person is not really responding, I can always check, hey, are you there? Whereas in a video meet, it becomes, unless and until there is something like a presentation to be shared or something, okay, start limiting your video meets. Instead, you can use phone. uh, the other area that is important is to be very clear about the leadership framework in terms of the roles, responsibilities, and goals. Become outcome driven. If you are focused on outcomes and not really on activities, and you are giving the responsibility very clearly defined to team members, then I think the use of technology is fine, because ultimately you don't start micromanaging. You don't start thinking that, wow, this guy is working or not working, let me again and again check. Just give the outcomes to these people. I wouldn't say we have reached there 100%, but yeah, that's a phase that we are into. Define the outcome. For example, in a coaching client, on a rating of 1 to 5, we ask the client to actually rate what their experience was, because coaching is such a thing, it is very difficult to measure. Let's accept it. But at least the client can tell you, on a rating of this 1 to 5, he was at 4 or he was at 3 or wherever. So if there is a gap, try and understand where. Or if it is a high rating, give that same weightage for the performance of the team member also, who's servicing along with me that particular client. That way you start becoming much more clearer. So you are not really focused only on a result which is activity based, so that you keep calling or you keep micromanaging. You rather use technology in the very appropriate way, but at the same time are very clear about your focused efforts, outcomes, goals, and leave it to the team. So give them that kind of a freedom, so that you don't lose that human touch. Very important, because otherwise with technology you will lose that human touch, and your focus will become only work, 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 and that's it. There will be nothing else in between. You will just ensure that there is a Google Doc, oh, this has not been updated, you just focus on that. And then behind the machine you start hiding, even as a leader, which is not right. So we have really kind of fine tuned our approach, and these are the areas where, clear goals, a leadership framework is there, outcome driven is there, phone use, and define at what time the video meets will happen, and when they will happen, and for what purpose they will happen. Otherwise the phone is fine. That's what we do.
Vijay, over to you. Vijay, we are not hearing you.
Not audible, Vijay. Maybe Prem, would you like to continue?
Yeah, I'll take that point, sir. Sir, very important points that we got to know on how we balance the technology and the human part. Now, coming to the lessons that we have, what lessons can you share? Leadership strategy did not work out as expected in a remote meeting, and what did you learn from that failure? And how can this shape our approach in today's meetings?
Yeah, sure. So, when we started, I am means while situational leadership is something which I always follow, but I have a lot of participative style,
Hmm.
and I continue to use that even in a virtual setup where as a participative style of leadership, I would do a lot of brainstorming sessions. But I realized that in a virtual setup, to do a brainstorming session where you require the instantaneity of a team member to actually contribute then and there, discuss an issue, is something very difficult to achieve, unlike in an office setup. So when we would do a brainstorming session and more of a skewed towards a participative style, I realized that the brainstorming session was not getting very productive because the people were just sometimes somebody's camera was not on, somebody's was on mute. Lot of time was kind of spent unnecessarily unproductivity. And so what do you do while you want the participative style also there, because there is cohesiveness that you can build with the team? So what we do is I adapted it to another style where brainstorming me. What we do now, and that has become a norm there, you send all the suppose you're discussing on a particular problem or a pain point or something which you want to find a solution on, send it in advance to the team. Each team member, every team member has it in advance. They are supposed to be writing down what their thoughts are in advance in writing and send it to us. And so that there's one person who I can give it as a project, saying that you are the project leader for this brainstorming session. Study everybody's inputs. Each of the team member has mailed the inputs in advance, that this is what I think. You save a lot of time to coming to the focal area. And when the brainstorming session starts, the project leader would just read out that this is what this person's contribution is, this is what this person's contribution is. And in that meeting, we will share in writing with every team member that, see, this is what, say, member X has said, this is what XY has said. And everybody's inputs are there with all of them in writing in advance. So the only thing that the team members have to do is start responding to what they feel is the contribution from themselves as well as the others. So the brainstorming session starts becoming much more productive. So point I'm making is it's a matter of adapting your own style. If it is participative, do it, but you have to adapt it to something which a virtual environment, you have to integrate it according to that. So that is something which we did, and now that has become the norm where we feel, and we are in the process of implementing that for every meeting, for every uh, meeting, or even if it is a telephone call, you give the agenda to a person that this is what we will be discussing today. Let us discuss on these areas. The communication is much more clearer, and it is very important to do this in a virtual environment, unlike in an office environment where you come physically, you can see the body language, you can immediately know the response of the person if you're not very clear. But here in writing, everything is to be done. So what we learned from this is that in writing, make it very clear in advance, and use your participative style. The situational leadership style can continue, and you can use other forms also. But don't lose on the transform. Don't lose it out on the participative style, which is there. But fine tune it and adapt it to something which will be much more productive. So similarly, this has become a system now. So that's something which we learned and have implemented.
Sir, coming to the next pointer that I would like to understand is, now everything is virtual. Now looking at, we are having people getting onboarded on a virtual platform. We are looking at some of the employees getting mentored on the virtual platforms. What are the best practices you have implemented for successfully onboarding new employees and mentoring talent, fresh talent, in a virtual environment? And how is the trust getting built and the rapport from day one, sir? It becomes a challenge, right? When we are at remote, you took a very important example where you said people have to be. constantly kept in touch in terms of having a phone call rather than a video call and stuff like that. Now that rapport has to be built is one step that you told is having a phone call. Now with the freshers, I don't know how things will work out. Your take on it, sir.
Sure. Very important point, because onboarding is such an important element, whether it's in an office environment or virtual. All these things, the magnitude increases on some aspects when you're in a virtual space. So, onboarding, one thing we do is as far as possible, not that we are perfect at it, but when you hire the right kind of talent first, somebody who aligns with your uh, vision, your mission, and your culture. So, we are into coaching because we know that every individual, every professional, we can make a difference because the potential is huge. It's
Hmm.
only a matter of change in perspective, which I believe is my strength, where I can change the perspective of a person. So if you can make the person look at the same thing differently, and the person starts delivering results because of the framework that you give them, fantastic. Now if that is the goal, while hiring only, we will ensure that the person comes with this, um, I would say, value, that they appreciate this, and also somebody who's into quality consciousness. Very important that they are very conscious of the quality of delivery. That's what we believe in. So if your hiring is right, then onboarding becomes easier. So that's the first step. That try and hire right. There's no guarantee. We know that, but at the same time, that so on onboarding freshers or whether it's new employees, I do one thing. First 1 hour session has to be with me.
Hmm.
I do it myself, because being a small team, I do it myself. Whoever is joining, they will spend 1 hour with me. I will tell them about the values that we have, the work culture we have, why we do what we do. It's important to know for them that we are into quality, we are into my firm belief, and this is something which is there in our culture, that there has to be. I've got something called as, which is my own favorite, Can I CANI. It's constant and never ending improvement. I believe that there's nothing like, we are all on an infinite journey. We have to constantly keep improving what we are doing. So that can I is the ethos of our work culture. There's nothing that, okay, today there was a coaching session that happened. Was that the best? No. But that was good. But what did we learn from that? Can we improve that? That is something which is my passion. I continue to do that, and that I have integrated as a culture. So when you're onboarding somebody, they should appreciate why that you are doing this. And once they understand that on day one, then you draw up a 30, 60, and a 90-day plan. The team leaders are supposed to be doing a one-to-one meeting with them, giving them clearly defined in writing roles and responsibilities. And as they move along in the first month, the second month, and third month, ensure that whatever they are going through, the team leader should take a feedback on a daily basis, one to one. That what did you do today? Record their voice, make them listen it back, so that you give them that kind of a constructive feedback. It's a self realization that happens, and that's how you tell them that, see, this is not, it's not aligned with what we are doing. Do that. So if you continuously do that for 30 days and then say, okay, now where, what is it that you have found it difficult, the team leader has to do that. And I continue to ensure that at least once in a month I will meet the newcomer to in, because with my experience of 40 years, I might be in a better position to sometimes read something which is not being said, and listen to something which is not being said. So we try to steer and support the newcomer, because it shouldn't be like something you're onboarding a luggage onto the plane. It shouldn't be that way. You have to integrate the thing. It's a two-sided thing. You have to take extra effort to ensure that the first 3 months are going well. Then the person is up and running. Then it becomes a little easier. But in the virtual space, these are the things that we have done. Again, I would emphasize clearly role, responsibility being defined, and you as a owner, founder of the company, telling them about the value so that they are integrated into that. Then I think it becomes important, and continuous feedback and handholding.
Sir, great pointers there, sir. Now, what is happening today is that the current situation is neither the team leads or the leaders listen to feedback, which is on a virtual space, right? Now, how do we look at they have given us a space, or I would put it saying that physiological safety is critical for innovation and collaboration, correct, right? And what practices you feel you should implement to ensure team members are comfortable in sharing ideas and feedback specifically onto the virtual space?
Very important: psychological safety and trust. Uh, it is built by the team leader
Hmm.
because of the trust that he or she can inculcate or pass on to the team member, and that's very essential. And trust is actually built on two aspects broadly.
Hmm.
One is on the basis of my competence and skills, which is knowable. You can see it. Yeah, this person is confident, or any leader, team leader is confident because of the competency, expertise, and skills. The other one is more important, which is relationship based or emotion based. You got to focus on that. And that is where the virtual setup, you got to again adapt your style to ensure that there is that psychological safety. Because if they don't feel safe, they will not raise their hand on anything, whether it's innovation, creativity, or even when they have problems. So that is something which is very essential. So from that point of view, as a leader, you look at it as, I would say, so-called servant leadership. You're serving them. You are ensuring that if there is, means really show concern. It's like in a family. Means if somebody is having a problem, you'll show concern. Then only the person will feel safe to come to you. Means I have children who we have raised, and they have been raised in a manner that they'll raise their hand on anything. So that how you teach your children to grow up, similarly you do that with the teams also. And one thing I have realized is that as a leader, if I am doing something to develop that trust, I also need to show my vulnerability. Because if I'm having a genuine problem, I can't hide that. I was having a personal challenge for a particular period last year, and for 6 8 months I was not myself. So I would tell my team that I'm not the best version of myself. I'll try my best, but I think we need to accommodate. So when, as a leader, I am showing my vulnerability and my genuineness and authenticity, the team also feels confident to tell you or share or feel safe to share if they have any problems, whether it's personal or otherwise, because that's how the message is going from the top leader, that you are humans and we can do that. Just because we are in a virtual environment, just don't become so machine led that even if you're having a problem, just hide it or don't say or feel shy. Inculcate that into your culture. You are open to listening what is happening. And another area that I find in terms of trust building is that when they make mistakes, just handhold them. That's important. Allow the team to make mistakes. In fact, encourage them to make mistakes. I would say that reward them if they have tried something new. Reward them. Even a verbal think that, okay, fine, you tried that, that's great. Because mistake, if it is made time and again, yeah, then it's a mistake. Otherwise, make them look at it as learning opportunity. But importantly, handhold them, make them do something. Means I'll, if I have to kind of ensure that somebody has got an idea, and whether the person will say that or no, I will make the person say, okay, first you tell me what you think and how will you go about it. And if the person really, sometimes you just take a chance and say, okay, send it to the client on the basis of what you have done. And if there is something that I observe, I will just explain it to the person, not really kind of say that, oh my God, you made this mistake, and never will I do that. If that is the case, then I'll never be able to build that trust in the culture. So that is what we are doing consistently. And absolutely, all suggestions that come, we are open to accepting that, so that they know that yes, we can raise our voice, we can give our contribution, and that's how trust is developed.
So amazing insights. I think in this pointer, I just wanted to add something is that you, you are telling us that you should trust people to make mistakes so that they can look at growth and say that I am wrong. That is one thing that we discussed in the previous question also. Accepting feedback and an input from the team, which helps us grow more, right? I would like to take one example where my boss used to say is that, Prem, always if you are falling upon me to help you, when will you learn? Okay, and that's the point that he used to tell is, Galti karo, you do a mistake, but you know if that is a mistake, rectify it, or else you will never learn. That you'll feel either I am doing always correct, you'll go into that structure, or you will say I know everything, that I don't need anybody's help now. So he used to tell galti karna is also a kind of learning only. It is not that you know everything and with that you become overconfident. First is that you should let your team members fail also when they succeed. But one thing that you, as you rightly said, is you should tell them to first experiment, fail, experiment, fail, not fail at the same juncture, and keep moving so that you get a confidence saying that I am at 10% today, tomorrow with this I will be at 50%, or I am still at 10%. So this gave me a lot of boost where I always say, sir, galti ho gaya to customer गाली दिया तो what will I do? He say, अगर गलती ही नहीं हुआ तो तेरे को कैसे पता चला कि यू डन समथिंग करेक्ट? डिड यू गो वैलिडेट इट? First, go show what you have done, then you will find mistakes coming out of it, then you will find some problems coming out, and then it can change. So that is what I took out from my boss's pointer, and he used to say, अगर मैं नहीं रहूंगा तो कहाँ जाओगे? Today I am there for you. Tomorrow where will you go? Tomorrow you have to take my shoe. I cannot stay be supporting you. I have to grow up the ladder. So this is few things that I got from my bosses who mentored me in most of my project management days. So I take your pointer now, and I see if you have to make people grow, you should allow them to do mistakes. That's what I'm taking from what you're saying, sir.
Absolutely, Prem. I think you've said it very well. In fact, I have a system only when somebody first asks me कि इसको सर कैसे करें? नहीं नहीं,
Hmm.
तुम क्या सोचते हो? बताओ मेरे को. करके दिखाओ, कर लो, भेज
Yeah.
दो, do it,
Hmm.
doesn't matter. So that freedom we have given our team. करो, करो उसको. क्लाइंट को हैंडल करना है, कोचिंग क्लाइंट का कोई इनपुट देना है, कर
Hmm.
दो. Just
Yeah.
do it. Doesn't matter. अच्छा मिस्टेक हो
Yeah.
गया उसके बाद तुरंत. But yeah, see, it's my responsibility if somebody has committed a mistake and done something with the client, I must immediately take the effort of informing the team member and
Yeah.
say, see, this is could have been done this way. I will take the effort to even write down and say this
Hmm.
is the way it should be done. Now that bit of hand holding as a leader, I need to do so that that trust is always maintained. उसको डर नहीं लगना चाहिए कि यार अरे ये हो गया अब क्या.
Hmm. Got your point, sir. Sir, with that, I wanted to understand another crucial point which is being discussed, where remote work is a burnout stuff, right? Because you are supposed to stay available whenever needed, kind of a thing. Remote work has been between personal and professional life. How do you, as a leader, recognize these signs of burnout in your team and step up to do what it takes to address it?
Very valid. So first, Prem, what needs to be done and what we are in the process of all the time doing is explain to the team members as to why we do what we do.
Hmm.
That alignment of why you are into coaching somebody and why a fresh perspective can bring about a change and how you as a team member can contribute to that change should be the first thing which will really kindle that fire and desire to go above the obstacle when the obstacle comes. Because when you know your why is very strong, you will find that there will be obstacles, but you will manage them because there is a purpose that you are serving a customer, serving a client because of this reason. And you see that in the culture of the company that is there. So you feel that, yes, I think I'm aligned there. So the first thing is that aligning the team members with the purpose so that that job burnout which can happen even in office environment or in virtual, it can happen more because you are really juggling between your personal priorities and your office priorities. So culturally, if you can first align with the why are you, so the person is motivated, the person knows that I have to do. Second, again, be very clear about the goals and what you are expecting from the team in writing. So, monthly goals, quarterly goals, yearly goals. All this has to be, the metric has to be kind of ensured that you keep fine tuning it, obviously, but there has to be a sense of direction so that they know that they're making progress. If there is a milestone achieved, yeah, they should know that they're making progress. So that if that feeling is there that I'm progressing, the burnout feeling will be slightly better managed. And another thing that we are doing now and helping our team members is to prioritize. We all know the 80-20 rule.
Hmm.
20% of the things really get you 80% of the results. Now, that's something which is a lifelong journey to identify what is important and what is really urgent and important. Focus on the important things. If there is an important thing, and if you spend really good quality time on important things, which could be only the 20%, but you will make 80% of the impact. Now if you are making 80% impact by just doing 20% of the thing, the other things are of low priority. Whether you do them today or you do them later will still be okay. So this balancing between what to prioritize and what to focus is so important to manage this burnout, which we are calling it, so that in the end, the employee or the team member feels very assured that yes, I think I'm in the right direction. Otherwise, what happens in a virtual environment, it's all machine led. There is nothing, no, if there are no goals in writing, if they don't know where they are progressing, if they don't know why they are doing it, so it becomes very mundane. And the mental health also starts getting affected, because you are at home, you might have a child, you might have a ailing parent, something. You got to be supportive there also, so that you are empathetic, you are a good listener, at the same time you are very flexible in your culture, so that you just don't become so focused on results that you just forget everything else. Otherwise, there'll be a burnout in that employee, and then there is a problem. Uh, if this is inculcated, it becomes far easier for everybody. And also because there is, as you rightly said, in a virtual environment, you are either in a video meet or a telephone, and if there are no time boundaries, so generally speaking, you inform the person in advance that we need to do a Google Meet right now. So if the person is comfortable, fine. If the person is not comfortable, we got to learn to be flexible and adaptable to others' needs also as a leader. Otherwise, if you just say that no, no, we have to meet right now, let's do it. If the person is under pressure, if there is a small baby at home, or if there is a ailing mother at home, or if there is a parent, or if the person is the sole earning member, and you're just consistently asking for doing something as a Google Meet at a particular fixed time without recognizing what that other team member is going through, without that empathetic approach, you will find that the burnout will happen very fast. But if you can be very conducive, accommodative, adaptable, and flexible, and with these systems in place with a lot of clarity, you will be able to manage that there is no burnout. And if there is, the person should feel safe enough to come and talk to you. And if you can manage that, fantastic. So that is what we have done, Prem.
Thank you for that, sir.
One,
Vijay.
one more thing, one more thing we have done is we have got generally speaking, fixed timings if we have to do video calls.
Okay.
If there is something, okay, 12 to 1 or maybe evening, something like that, generally, I'm not saying it's
Mm,
always
mm,
maintained,
mm.
but yeah, generally speaking, so that they know that there'll be a video call, so accordingly for a video call. That's why I said the telephone is also becoming important. I really value what uh, Graham Bell invented and gave us. I value the telephone a lot, and
Yes.
I think that's much more easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarabjeet. Uh, so, can you walk through us a high stakes decision you had to make in a remote leadership setting? How did the virtual aspects influence your decision making process and communication?
Sure. So the biggest high stakes decision was when we really converted into remote work, because all the time you were in office and COVID led it. But yeah, we had to take a decision that now the whole team will be virtual. Now
Mm.
that was a very high stakes, big decision, because we didn't have experience of how we will do it. Of course, there is a learning attitude, so one is confident of that. Of course, there is a lot of uncertainty in every area, not only here. So that was a very high stake decision, that how will we really manage this if everything goes remote. The clients are also used to talking physically, face to face visits, etc. Today we have teams across Orissa, Kashmir, Agra, UP, wherever we are managing, Bangalore, Bombay, everywhere we are managing it well, because again, as I said, we had to adapt to ensure that why we are doing what we are doing. And more importantly, we had to shift into a digital mindset. Now,
Mm.
that part was a very big shift, because you had never been really kind of used to having this kind of meetings over Google Meets or over phone calls or having Google Docs or using Trello for projects or whatever. So the digital mindset was something which was the number one thing that we had to first ensure that we do it uh, virtually, using the technology to our advantage, taking the teams into confidence, and slowly we started ensuring that the inputs that were coming from the team started getting integrated into the system, looking at what is working, what is not working, and even now we are still continue to learn, because that's what I said. As a principle, I believe in can I constant and never ending improvement. We continue to do that. But yeah, I think that was one of our biggest high stake decisions. And we have been reasonably good right now, though still learning. But yeah, we've been able to manage that reasonably well.
Coming into our next pointer that you said, we've been looking at, there are becomes a complete shift when you look at the companies moving from to a hybrid model, right? Now, what adjustments does the leader look at the leadership styles to catch up both in the office and remote employees? How do we look at this ensuring inclusive and equal engagement is available for both parties? So, how do we look at these leadership styles coming up?
Very valid, Prem. I think it is one of the big challenges for leaders. What kind of style to adapt? While situational leadership still remains my favorite. You have to adapt. Important that we are a relatively small team, but it's important to know each team member's background.
Hmm.
That is essential, because only then you can adapt to a leadership style, because no team member is the same. Sometimes you might have to use a different style with one team member. Sometimes you have to use another style with a different team member. There is nothing like the same style will be across all the team members at all the time. So situational leadership is something which is important. But in a virtual environment, a transactional leadership, if they call it, mm, where you are clearly defining the objective, clearly defining the goals, clearly defining what the roles and responsibility is, and making it a little more outcome driven. So for example, if it's a coaching client where because again I'm giving the same example, that it's very challenging to make coaching outcome very measurable. It is an ongoing thing. If it's a leadership coaching, how do you evaluate that? But there are parameters where you can say that, okay, fine, if somebody has done a SWOT analysis, for example, if a team member is responsible for ensuring that the client has completed the SWOT analysis and sent the inputs, the outcome driven thinking will be that not only whether the client has sent you the inputs of the outcome of the SWOT, but has the client been able to understand his or her strengths and written down success stories? And if
Hmm.
yes, then how many success stories? Then it means that the person has really understood that SWOT analysis, whatever we did for that client. So if you get into an outcome driven uh, approach, it becomes far easier for you to adapt to a style. And depending on what the person is like in terms of their own persona, and if it's a relatively smaller team, you got to ensure that you adapt your style accordingly. But it is situational, and transactional leadership I find where there is a lot of clarity and it is objective. So even in a meetings, make it very clear, put it in writing, give the objective of the meeting, have that kind of a style more in a virtual environment as compared to a office environment, because you are, as I said, it's limited to meetings, and what happens between the two meetings is not under your control, and you are not in the same physical space, you can't see it. Like, I'll give you an example. If the difference between an office and this is that if I'm sitting here and if there is a team member in front of me in my cabin in front of me, the person is nervous. I can see from the body language. The person could be moving or shaking the leg, could be tapping on the pen. I can see all that. But in a virtual, I can't see him tapping the leg. I don't even know whether he's nervous or no. When you're missing out these nuances in a virtual, it becomes very important that you use clarity of role, responsibility, what you're going to do in advance. And so when you're meeting, you already have covered up a lot. And at the same time, no replacement for good listening, really, truly listening. That is important. You got to adapt your style accordingly.
Sir, I think that point adds up to a lot of pointers where most of the leaders don't listen to the current situation. That is what I take from what you've been talking about. The leadership should be more of listening and observing, based on which they can do better decisions is what I've been made to understand with the various talks that we've been doing over the period. And this example that you said makes a lot of difference when talking about the adjustment of models and stuff like that. Like, coming to the next point that I want to look at, how do we foster a culture of creative and innovative when the team depressed is in a depressed state, and can we share a creative approach that can have this worked well?
Yeah, Prem. So it is, first of all, it's very important that you have built so much of trust that the team feels safe. Because if the team doesn't feel safe, no innovation or creativity will happen. They will never come up only with any suggestions because they are all the time scared. So the first thing as a leader, we got to ensure that create it as a safe environment. Create it as an environment where you know you are making them feel safe. Means to a virtual environment, even in terms of my own style of leadership, I do get into small talks naturally. Now, if in the background, some like the other day, one team member saw one photograph of my wife and myself when it was, and she said, it's a beautiful photograph of you and your wife. So I really shared my story of excitement when we won a prize from British Airways way back in 1990 when it was a first trip to London.
Okay.
So sharing that kind of a story, then asking about that person, what's happening in their life, those kind of small talks are very important to make the culture safe. Very,
Hmm.
very important because they know that you are human. You're not just starting a meeting because, as I would say that in a virtual environment, it's one meeting, the next meeting. What's
Yeah.
happening in between the meetings, you don't know. So when you meet, also show your human angle consciously, genuinely. I'm not saying make it up because by nature I'm like that. I'll do a small talk. I'll talk about you also, Prem. So, okay, Prem, what's happening in your life? Fine. So, there is a human angle that you got to bring. So, first is to make it safe so that teams feel very safe to innovate, come up with creative solutions. And what we have used also effectively is feedback from our coaching clients. So when you get feedback, there are certain pain points that come up, and so we should have the courage as leaders to accept that somebody said, "Yeah, nahi, it is all bullshit what you are doing." Assuming it comes to that, or I'm not very happy with this, I was not happy. So listen to that also and talk to the team member whether it is justified or not. First of all, if it is justified, how will you work? Give the responsibility to a team member saying that, see, this is the feedback we have got, let us listen to you and let us see how you can solve it. Give the first opportunity to the team to say that you can come up, and you can, in fact, you can even rotate that amongst team members so that everybody feels that cohesiveness, that yes, even if there is a feedback that is not really up to mark, we are here to find a solution rather than just getting bogged down with that. So these are two things that we've done.
Thank you, Sabjit. I'm looking at leadership trends. What is the next, for virtual workplace? In that view, what leadership trends are you seeing that C-suite, C-suite executives, business owners should be paying attention to the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, very valid point. See, I think what my experience has been, even when I'm coaching clients, senior clients, what I've realized is that the digital first kind of a mindset is not there, especially in seniors. I find that adapting to the digital world takes time. I'm not saying that anybody has to be really an expert in the digital world, but you should know about what are the options. Assuming Trello is something which you can use for a project, and that resistance to actually the digital tools, that is something which I think we need to break, because that's going to remain. If we are, and I'm sure we will continue to work in hybrid modes, and digital as technology will continue to ensure that its use is going to make your job as a leader more effective when you're managing teams virtually. So the digital mindset is extremely essential. Second, make it outcome based, not just task based. Again, think of, not that we are perfect with that, but every time, even I'm thinking that, okay, what can be the outcome of this? think in terms of outcomes rather than just activity or tasks. What is the outcome? What are you trying to achieve with that activity? So if that end result is very clearly defined, in a virtual world, you will not tend to micromanage because you know this is the outcome. You've told the team. And in between, yeah, so wherever they need hand holding, you do that. Uh, that's the second piece. Another thing that we'll have to do as leaders in going forward is have a learning attitude, because technology will continue to get upgraded, and it's a very dynamic world. Do you have a learning attitude? Can you continue to learn means I have a habit which I've been following for years together. It's a learning journal. Every night, as far as possible, before I go to sleep, I'll write down at least one thing new that I learned today. So in technology, if I means I wouldn't know what how to manage Trello and all that, but somewhere on the line I've learned it. So learning attitude is essential as we go forward. And making it very clear that as a leadership framework, you got to define everything very, very clearly in terms of the goals, the roles, the responsibilities in writing, not being fuzzy about anything. That becomes all the more important. It is important in the face to face office environment also, but in the virtual, it becomes all the more important. And taking care of the work life balance, because in virtual world the mental health can take a toll. So being empathetic, being flexible, um, as leaders we will have to be flexible, there is no doubt. We'll have to be very patient, flexible, and empathetic to ensure that the mental health of the employees doesn't get as affected, and the chances of getting affected in a virtual environment are much more, because they are you the person is not in front of you, and sometimes they are engaged with something at home, and you suddenly are putting pressure there. So I think that is important. One thing I never do is, as a principle I followed, never ever scold a team member or point out the mistake of a team member in front of others, because in an environment like this, in a virtual environment, it is not only the team member, it is also the family members who are involved. While today now we are
Yes.
having a meeting, there will be a family member, the people who are listening, they'll be along with their family members there. And if there is a um you're putting down somebody in front of the family members, just imagine the person will lose the self esteem. So I'm very careful of all these things. So flexibility, empathetic approach, listening, all these will become very, very important traits as we go along and remain in this hybrid culture. That's important.
Yeah, great insights. Thank you for that. With that, if I see the communication barriers in remote teams, what communication challenges have you faced with virtual teams, and what tools or methods have you found to be most effective in bridging those gaps?
Yeah. So it does happen that, first of all, because it's a virtual environment, one, it could be, if you have a team member which is outside the country, then it's a time zone difference. That is one that poses one challenge. Sometimes the second challenge I find is over dependence on written communication. As I said, if you start hiding behind the machine and become very comfortable with only communicating in writing, that is a challenge. Because then you'll start losing that human touch, and sometimes it can happen that just because of that extra effort that you have to take, you may just overuse the written communication and continue to just stay away from interacting, and that can be posing another challenge. And uh, s- misinterpreting or becoming judgmental about something just because the person is not in front of you, there are high chances of that. So the communication again can become that, oh, like I gave you an example, somebody doesn't respond to you, you got to really kind of not just start assuming and becoming judgmental that the person is useless or can't. Got to have a lot of patience and courage to just hold back and just wait and then
Yes.
get clarification. So these are areas. So in terms of making it clear the roles, responsibilities, you got to be very clear about it, give it in writing, make it outcome based. Use a multi-channel approach in terms of communication. Videos, use it exclusively for where you need to share screen. Otherwise, the telephone is a very good medium. I feel more convenient. Ensure that you give them a little notice before you call or before you are kind of having a meeting. And importantly, regular check-ins one to one with the team is essential, definitely essential, because that is something, like I'm talking to you right now, I can at least hear you, I can see you. I generally prefer the video being on if there is a meeting, but I don't insist on that. But because there is a body language that you can, the emotions at least you can see, that is important. So to bridge that, these are some of the tools that we are using.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, sir. I think with this we are coming to the final point that I would like to understand from this one. Then we will conclude the session. Now, as we are on the virtual world, we've been talking on virtual world and many things. What personal growth habits or leadership development techniques have been pivotal for you as someone who has led teams remotely, and how to develop themselves or yourself become a leader?
So I have been, by God's grace, very fortunate, and I feel very grateful that I have this learning attitude. My mother was a school teacher; she was an English teacher, so I was brought up in an environment where learning was always. I'm a very passionate learner. I love to read books.
Hmm.
Means I would read books. Even now there will be a book in which I will be reading, which is start with why. I'm rereading it. It's by Simon Sinek. So I read books a lot. I still I'm still the kind of person who loves to have the feel of the paper. I'm not still the Kindle kind,
Hmm. Hmm. Very
because I
good.
like to mark things with the pencil, write down what I learned. I have got a learning journal. I do write down what I learned today, and journaling is something which is very important. I also meditate, and mindfulness is something which I ensure that I'm not reactive as far as possible. I'm also human, but that I do. Uh, Importantly, to develop myself as a leader, from every coaching session, I learn, and what I can do better next time. I always make a note that in this coaching session I could have done this better, and I do implement it. So from that point of view, even a client for me, huge amount of learning, huge. Every coaching session I do, I learn a lot, because that is something which I'm thankful for, clients who are coming to us and we are able to add value, but at the same time they add value to me, and I learn a lot from them. And I it's my passion. For the last three and a half years I've been making videos. So I do one video every day across social media, and for that I really got to apply my mind, so that really boosts my learning ability. I conduct webinars. So if I'm doing a webinar for that, and I blog, I am a very passionate blogger. I write articles. So to write the article, I got to do a lot of homework, got to think. So that, and when there is interaction, and I do respond when there are comments, etc. So that serves the learning. And LinkedIn, I do find, is a very effective medium to learn the collaborative articles and so on and so forth. So these are some of the ways that I have been doing it personally for my personal growth.
Sir, great, sir. With this, we would like to conclude. I just want to summarize some of the pointers that I've taken over the overall session. So, we spoke about the empathy driven leadership in virtual space, balancing technology and human connections, lessons learned from leadership on the remote work and their failures, virtual onboarding and mentorship for freshers and the team is what we spoke about, navigating team dynamics across culture, building a physiological safety in the virtual environment, combating remote work burnouts is what we spoke about, decision making on virtual leadership roles, adopting leadership styles in the hybrid workforce, and cultivating innovative and remote teams is what we spoke about, innovation and leadership trends towards the next virtual workspace thing that we discussed. How do we look at communication barriers in remote work? And finally, we spoke about how personal growth and leadership development in the virtual leadership can happen, is what we spoke around. And great topics and great insights that we've got from you, sir. And
Thank
with
you.
this, I would like to say to the audience, thanks for joining us. We have been
Thank you.
streamed live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You join us again. Hope this session was valuable for you. And our next topic is on the 169th episode, where enhancing education for a future ready generation is on the 12th of November at 6:30 p.m. IST. Looking forward to have you on that, sir. With this, thank you. Any last word that you want to put across before we conclude, sir?
Yeah, thanks for everybody who has attended. Thanks, Prem, to you and to Vijay to arrange this session, because, as I said, every time you do a session, it's a learning for all of us. I enjoyed interacting and adding value. Hopefully, people will carry home some nuggets, some things. Even if I can make a difference of just to one person,
Hmm.
I'm fulfilled. And I think times are good, but the biggest thing that only one thing I would like to say: we need to learn to be adaptable. That's very, very important. Got to adapt, and uh, don't give up. In the sense, there will be challenges that will keep coming. Virtual world is something which has got its own advantages. Uh, Continue to nurture that, and you will have definitely the advantage of being in a virtual world. And whatever it is, just continue to talk to your leaders also about it, and wish everybody all the best. All the best to you also, Prem and Vijay.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Sir, with this, we would like to conclude. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye.